I'm not selling anything. I've said this all along. I'm not writing any covered calls. I'm not selling anything. I'm sticking with the names that I own here. And, if you said, well, gee, what if I don't own anything or I want to add some energy? I'm itching, to go more overweight. The one name that obviously has got still momentum here is Cheniere, LNG, just because, as probably most have seen in the headlines, the recent attacks on Qatar's LNG facilities, they came out and said, well, there's about 15% of our capacity that we can't repair, bring back online for 5 years. So the more of that LNG capacity in Qatar that comes offline or is delayed and coming back online is a benefit to the U.S. LNG producer, Cheniere being, the obvious one at the top of the list. So, I'm holding on all the names. If you're saying, look, I want to add somebody, I'm itching to add an energy name here, Cheniere, and I know it's up like 4% this morning, but that's the obvious name that is going to continue to benefit from what's happened here in the past few days.
And I would add, if you want a little more speculative, Nexta and Venture Global both are literally going vertical. They're a little bit more upstarty versions of US LNG. It was, I think, Venture Global was a early 24 IPO out of Goldman, or maybe 25. I can't remember. Maybe it was 25. But those things have really gotten off their butt here, and I think that I've heard arguments that, part of the strategy of this war that's not talked about publicly is, you wanted that Qatari LNG. How about the US LNG? Because we both have a lot of trains coming online, starting last year through about 28, Bob? There's a big amount of supply coming online, and, market share in energy is a little dirtier business than retail, Jeff. Sometimes they get into the war game.
There was some concern that we would have overcapacity of LNG export facilities in that.
That was a huge short thesis for sure on that gas in like the 27 part of the curve.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much out the window if you've got some of this Qatari capacity offline through that period.
So in the softer perspective, what can go right? It's this has been just a clown show pretty much from the jump. They've ignored the U.S. history of regime change efforts, not a super glorious past in that. They can't ignore the fact that no presidency has really been able to withstand, at least in the midterm basis, gas prices that are going parabolic. And so at some point, they're going to pull out the stops to try to reverse this. They can't have the rate of change anyway. If they get it back to 75, you're at least having a conversation. But what can go right in terms of driving oil down? There don't seem to be any quick fixes. What isn't anyone thinking about just yet that could happen?
It could happen, and it's not likely, but Trump met with all the heads of the oil companies in the U.S. And remember, these companies have been very strict the past 4 or 5 years in basically maintaining production, returning all excess cash flow to investors or shareholders. Can he twist their arm and say, you know what, ramp it up, start to grow your production? Can we add 1 million barrels a day of production in the Permian Basin in a short time period? Yeah, we could. Physically, we could. We drilled these wells in like less than a week. How quickly they can drill horizontal wells in the Permian is amazing. So what could go right? And I'm not saying this is the base case or the likely case, but you said, what could go right? Could the administration incentivize or twist the arm of the Chevrons and Exxons and everybody to go into the Permian and ramp up their activity to, in 6 months, could you add 1 million barrels a day out of the Permian? Yeah, possibly. You could. It's conceivable if you just, put the accelerator to the floor and call in all these rig companies and service companies and add rigs and say, look, we're just going to start drilling these wells like crazy and increase our production out of the Permian. In 6 months, could you add 1 million barrels a day? Possibly. That's sort of the upside case. What could go right to really add the supply, the upside scenario, at the same time that they get control of the Strait of Hormuz and they're able to allow shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. At some point, that's got to give. At some point, that's got to happen, because at some point, I would think that Iran would run out of fire capacity. When and that is, I don't know, but at some point, and does that entail Israel or somebody putting boots on the ground? I don't know. But in the meantime, you've still got the risk of blowing up those pipelines on Karg Island that deliver all that crude from Iran in the cargo ships that then can sail out of Iran. that's always a risk. It's something that can happen, and that's one thing that Trump's administration is trying to do right now.